Ever since I was 5 years old, I had been a fan of Final Fantasy. I've covered this before, but I started with Final Fantasy IV and just kept playing every new game that came our way. And I was in love with it all. The characters, the music, the gameplay, every entry stood out among the rest, and it was one of my favorite gaming franchises. It meant a lot to me. And hopefully, my retrospective has demonstrated that. But in the mid-2000s, things started to change. My relationship with the series was turning sour. I'm pretty sure it all started with the Final Fantasy VII compilation. A movie and some games that just do not understand the source material. Turning a colorful game into a brown muted mess, this series also had our characters talking like philosophers hopped up on Xanax. When it's not pulling things out of its ass, it just misses the mark completely on what made that universe so compelling. They announced a fighting game called Dissidia, and I got pretty excited for that. And it was a big disappointment. All those bottomless pits to dash over, a bad camera, abilities you had to unlock to give characters any kind of satisfying move list. I know this is a hot take, but I just didn't enjoy it.
But what exactly are we fighting for?
A reason to fight. I suppose I've never thought about that before.
I liked Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. Then I find out it's got a sequel on the Wii, with the same graphical fidelity as Final Fantasy XII. Awesome! So I pick it up, and the gameplay sucks. All you did was pick things up with motion controls and chuck them at people. All that time and effort, and this is what they came up with? And then we come full circle. My first ever Final Fantasy game was getting a direct sequel, The After Years. I got it on the Wii, and it was lame. Not only did it look and sound cheaper than the original from 1991, it was super expensive for what it was. 800 Wii points to buy the initial episode, and then another 3,000 just to complete the saga. I never finished The After Years, and I don't think I ever will. The series was just becoming a long list of disappointments. Even Kingdom Hearts was getting way too convoluted and pretentious for its own good.
Fair enough. You could say I am the biggest nobody of them all.
Why am I telling you all this? Because I need you to understand my mindset going into the next main entry game. Final Fantasy XIII was shown off for the first time at E3 2006, just before Final Fantasy XII had been released. And honestly, the teaser was awesome! A pink-haired woman doing all of these acrobatic maneuvers and kicking all kinds of ass with a gun blade. I mean, that battle! All the people that this woman hit with Firaga, how cinematic this fight looked. It really made my imagination explode in regards to the potential of gaming's 7th generation. I was thinking back to what a game changer Final Fantasy X was, how it improved the gameplay, how it brought voice acting and facial expressions, and how it's still my second favorite game in the series. 13 could exceed that. It could finally be the Final Fantasy VII killer we've all wanted, because if this game kicks ass, we're not even gonna need a remake. And after 3 years of JRPGs taking a backseat to things like Dragon Age, Elder Scrolls, and Fable, I was hungry for the old days, you know? I was looking for Final Fantasy to once again claim their dominion. So finally, on March 9th, 2010, Final Fantasy XIII reaches North America. And what did I think of it? I hated it. I hated it! It was awful. Not to be melodramatic, but this game completely destroyed my faith in modern-day Final Fantasy. Because, wow! What were they doing? Take fun gameplay and dumb it down. Take exploration and get rid of it. Who needs competent storytelling when you can just follow along with a data log entry? I couldn't believe it. I had no idea that this game was going to be as bad as it was. The reviews were good. 8s and 9s and 10s across the board. What game did they play? Longtime fans may remember that back in the day, I used to do vlog reviews on this YouTube channel. And in 2010, I thought Final Fantasy XIII was so bad that it was the worst game of the year. Yeah. Guys, Final Fantasy XIII is just really, really bad. Who cares if it gets better at the end of the game? The majority of the game is boring as shit. I would never replay Final Fantasy XIII. Never say never. because now I'm doing this retrospective. Now look, I know this game has its fans. I've been hearing from them ever since the 12 video came out last month, and it made me wonder, was I wrong about this one? I mean, it's been 10 years. Who knows? Maybe now that I know what to expect, I can just appreciate it for what it is and not what I wanted it to be. Well, now that I've beaten it a second time, I can safely say that no, it fucking sucks. I don't know what some of you guys see in this thing, but my god, it's miserable. A hallway simulator of a game that lacks any of the wonder or adventure this series used to have. It feels like a Final Fantasy game made by people who don't like Final Fantasy. It sucks! It just sucks. Sorry. Look, I'm just being honest with you guys. This is my retrospective, and now we're at the part of the story where I tell you how I lost my passion for Final Fantasy. This game really let me down, and now I'm here to tell you why. As always, this video will feature full spoilers. If for some reason you still want to play this, you might want to stop the video now. But if you're still here, well, I apologize in advance for all the negativity. Time to vent my frustrations with Final Fantasy XIII. Now, this game's plot requires a lot of setup in order to explain what's going on, so you'll have to bear with me. Our story begins in the artificial world of Cocoon, a floating spherical utopia that hovers in the sky above the actual planet Gran Pulse. And this planet was inhabited by godly creatures known as the fal'Cie. Now, the fal'Cie, they're capable of some amazing things, like the ability to change the weather, to create food supplies. They can even eat creatures and then shit out an entirely new species. I'm not kidding about that last part. That's what the fal'Cie Titan actually does. There's something else. Now, another amazing feat they can do is brand humans and transform them into l'Cie. Basically, they give you a fancy tattoo and you gain the ability to cast magic. Fire, Cure, Thundaga, all the familiar stuff like that. And if that sounds awesome, it isn't. This is a curse. People who get branded l'Cie must fulfill the focus of their fal'Cie. What's their focus? Well, it depends on the fal'Cie, I suppose. But basically, you have a time limit to do what they say. If they say, go get me a bag of chips, then once you do that, your body will turn completely to crystal. You'll get to live forever, but you'll be frozen for the rest of time. Yay? But if you don't get them their bag of chips, the tattoo will keep growing until it eventually activates, transforming you into a Cie'th. Someone destined to lose their minds and live in constant misery as a rock zombie for all eternity. So, as you can imagine, becoming a l'Cie really fucking sucks. So one group of fal'Cie, wanting to ease humanity's burden, created the floating construct known as Cocoon, because high in the sky, everyone would be safe from the Pulse fal'Cie and would never be forced to fulfill any focus. But they didn't get this peace without a fight, and long ago there was a war of transgression, where Cocoon fal'Cie took on Pulse fal'Cie until Cocoon eventually came out as the winner. But this war would leave relics behind, including one such relic, which kicks off the plot. So now we cut to present day at Cocoon's seaside city of Bodom. Everyone's gathered to this place to check out the city's annual fireworks festival, and that includes all of the main characters who will be making up our battle party. The catalyst of the story comes in the form of a girl named Sarah. One day, she decided to check out the creepy-looking relic hanging out nearby, and wouldn't you know it, she ends up getting branded by a dormant fal'Cie hiding inside. Oops! The next day, she proceeds to tell her boyfriend, a punchy meathead named Snow.
Branded by Pulse. I'm a l'Cie.
What is your focus?
I don't know my focus. I'm gonna be a monster.
Not if I'm here. I'll protect you.
By the way, that's Laura Bailey voicing Sarah, and Troy Baker voicing Snow. Can't say I've ever seen those two in a game together. But yes, Snow loves Sarah very much, and with the looming threat of her brand, he decides to propose to the woman he loves.
Will you marry me?
Yes.
She said yes!
But hold on there, sport. You still gotta win the approval of Sarah's older sister, the badass commando main character, a woman named Lightning. At least, that's the code name she was given. Lightning is an emotionally closed-off soldier serving under the Bodum Guardian Corps, and that unit must be incredibly badass if they taught her how to fight. Anywho, she doesn't take the news very well.
You became a lessee, so now you're gonna marry this idiot? And you think I'm gonna buy that? This is ridiculous. Worst birthday ever.
Lightning, stop it!
No, you stop it! Get out of my house.
You're shutting her out! She's your sister!
But then tragedy strikes as later that day, Snow and Sarah find themselves running from Cocoon authorities, who unleash hell trying to capture the rogue lessee. In a desperate attempt to escape, Snow brings Sarah close to the vestige containing the fal'Cie, and it ends up sucking her into some kind of Stargate portal or something. Snow tries to save his bride-to-be, but only ends up getting blasted back to the beach from whence he came. And then shit hits the fan. The Sanctum, Cocoon's main government, decides to initiate the Purge, because with the confirmation of both a lessee as well as a fal'Cie, anyone in the city could potentially be an enemy of Cocoon, and thus all of the citizens are loaded onto trains to be evacuated and sent to Gran Pulse, regardless of whether they have a brand or not. Better to be safe than sorry, I guess.
Execution masquerading as exile. That's all the Purge ever was.
How does the government get away with pulling crap like that?
So this finally takes us to the beginning of the game. Lightning, feeling bad about how she reacted to her sister's curse, volunteers to be purged. Why? To follow the Sanctum, who are escorting the fal'Cie, and save Sarah. And it turns out that Lightning kicks ass.
She did it!
Keep in mind that Bodum is such a peaceful location that the Guardian Corps don't even really find themselves thrust into danger that often. So where the hell did this girl learn to become fucking Rambo?
They all want to fight.
Good for them.
At this point in the story, she is not a lessee, but that doesn't stop her from going face to face with a giant scorpion machine and turning it into scrap. God damn, woman! So the would-be purged citizens refuse their fate and decide to rebel against the Sanctum. All-out war breaks out around the fal'Cie, with one group of rebels being led by Snow.
Yo, boss. What's the plan?
Charge in, guns blazing.
That's not a plan.
Real heroes don't need plans.
Oh, Jesus Christ. This group is referred to as Nora, by the way. They're basically Avalanche from Final Fantasy VII if every member of Avalanche was an idiot.
This is crazy.
Then take a nap.
Really? Can I?
You're in a fucking war zone, asshole! God, I wish the blonde kid took a bullet right then and there. But anywho, Nora end up recruiting citizens who volunteer to fight the Sanctum. This includes one woman who leaves behind her son, a boy named Hope.
Mom?
Don't worry.
You sure?
Moms are tough.
And how does this turn out? Well, a rocket fires off at them, destroying the bridge they're standing on, and all the innocent people fall to their death. Fantastic. Snow tries to save Hope's mother, but it's in vain.
Get him home. Please.
Snow falls off too, by the way, but miraculously, the guy somehow survives. And then the jackass is immediately back to normal, having a good old chuckle with the rest of Nora, while Hope watches in the background. The kid decides he's got something to say to Snow, but it's too late since off he goes to rescue Sarah. This whole time, Hope has been bonding with a fellow Purge victim, a pink-haired girl named Vanille. Though hanging around her was probably not the wisest decision.
I want to tell him. It's just that...
You know how to fly this?
Yeah, I think so.
In you go!
I don't think I can...
So this chick manages to peer pressure Hope into stealing a Sanctum jet bike so that he can chase after Snow and go into the vestige where the fal'Cie is. They manage to crash through, and Vanille is totally blasé about the situation they find themselves in.
What were we thinking?
Well, since we're here, let's look around.
I know she has an ulterior motive for wanting to come here, but this chick is so magic pixie anime girl, it hurts me. Not that the other characters are much better.
Hang on, baby! Your hero's on the way!
Ugh. Anywho, everyone finds themselves at the Fal'Cie's vestige. This includes Lightning and a man named Zaz. He was riding the same train as her, and seeing how much of a badass she is, he decides to tag along.
Hey! Hey! Wait! No, don't leave me!
Let go!
No, hell no! You're my only way out of here!
And because of Zaz, Lightning never does her awesome gravity moves ever again. Hope you enjoyed that opening cutscene!
I'm after the Fal'Cie. Still happy you tagged along.
Didn't have a choice.
Inside, Snow manages to save the kids from some Seath, and after coming all this way to talk to the guy, Hope finds himself getting angry over why Snow's here.
My wife. Future wife, that is. She's a Pulse l'Cie. I gotta find her and set her free.
What's wrong with you? Why do you want to help a l'Cie? They're the enemy. How can you save a l'Cie? You're not...
Oh god. Hope blames Snow for his mom dying, doesn't he? But finally, everyone meets up after Lightning manages to locate Sarah.
Sarah!
You can save us. Protect us all. Save Cocoon.
Leave it to me, you'll see. I'll protect Cocoon. I'll save everyone.
Thank you.
And just like that, it appears that Sarah's focus has been fulfilled. The young girl crystallizes in front of everyone, leaving them shocked and full of grief. Snow, not ready to say goodbye, decides to approach the Fal'Cie and ask for answers.
You gave her a focus, and she did it! You got what you want! Now let her go!
Like this thing gives a damn what we want! Ah! Sarah told us to save Cocoon. That means this thing needs to die.
And just like that, the Fal'Cie, which is named Enema, by the way, decides to wake up and confront our heroes. And after having a boss fight with the creature, it grabs everyone in the chamber and creates a brand upon them. Uh-oh. Not only that, but they all get a weird vision. A vision of some kind of creature unleashing mass destruction. Using its dying energy, Enema unleashes a devastating ice wave that takes out all of the Sanctum airships and freezes the lake underneath them. Our heroes wake up on this lake when suddenly they get attacked by some more Seath. Snow channels an unfamiliar power to defeat one.
You used magic. The Fal'Cie cursed us. We're l'Cie now.
Yep, everyone is now a full-blown l'Cie. After the fight, they debrief each other, discovering that each of them had the exact same vision. Somehow, they understand that the creature's name is Ragnarok, and the destruction it's causing will destroy Cocoon. And that vision, by the way, is their focus.
The dream's the only hint the Fal'Cie gives us. Figuring out what to do with it, that's our job.
How are we supposed to know what to do from that?
Sarah's Fal'Cie was the same as ours. Our focus has gotta be the same. We were chosen to be guardians. To defeat Ragnarok!
Naturally, this creates division among the group. Zaz can't believe that a Pulse Fal'Cie would want to help Cocoon. And Lightning? Having just lost her sister, she's not in the mood for Snow's bullshit.
Does she look protected to you?
I'll finish this focus and keep Sarah safe.
Great job so far.
And now, all 5 characters are fugitives, because anyone who is branded a l'Cie is to be considered an enemy of Cocoon. Having to escape the Sanctum forces, our heroes also have to worry about the ticking time bomb that's been branded to their skin. So what are they gonna do? Will they join forces to save Cocoon, or will they use their power to destroy it? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the setup to Final Fantasy XIII. Now, I want to talk about how this game's story is structured. Like, I had to get the backstory and lore out of the way first because it's the easiest way I can get across what this game is about. But in reality, Final Fantasy XIII just kind of throws you into the action. We start off on the train with Lightning kicking ass, and there is just no context given whatsoever.
You alright? I'm not a l'Cie.
Cool! Don't know what that means, but okay.
I'm after the Fal'Cie.
What's a Fal'Cie? Oh, I guess the scene's over.
Pulse Fal'Cie and their l'Cie are enemies of the state.
Why? What did they do? Why is everyone fighting? What is this conflict about?
The Purge was PSICOM. Private Sanctum troops, not the Guardian Corps.
Why are people being purged? The first 3 hours of the game are so confusing and disorienting. You as the player have no idea what any of these terms mean. Is Cocoon a city? A country? A planet? What the fuck is it? We have no frame of reference on what a fal'Cie is, what they look like, how big they are, or how they're turning people into l'Cie. And again, there's no setup for these characters. Snow is a cocky, headstrong guy leading the resistance through this battle, but it's only near the end that he mentions that he's looking for his fiancée. I don't know what his deal is. I don't know what Nora's deal is.
What's our motto?
The army's no match for Nora.
Oh, so they must fight the army a lot. They must be a resistance group. And no, they're not. Since the game is lacking in exposition, it mitigates this problem by having data logs. Every time a cutscene ends, you will see data log updated in the top left corner. And then you can go into the main menu to read tons of paragraphs about all the various organizations and terminology that gets thrown out during the game. And Nora doesn't fight the army. It's a ragtag neighborhood watch that defends the city of Bodom from monsters. And they never say that in a cutscene. Hell, they never mention Bodom in the first 2 hours, so I didn't even know that that's where all these characters came from. The first time in the game we ever see Sarah is when she turns to Crystal. That's her first scene! And I didn't even know that turning into Crystal is what happens when l'Cie fulfill their focus, because no one mentioned that yet! So every scene with Sarah in it afterwards is a flashback scene, because this game wants to be a Quentin Tarantino movie and jump around all the time. This is just bad storytelling. Look, I get that they wanted to start the game off with a bang. Get the player into the action, throw them into some battles, let the mystery unfold as it goes on. But this is a complicated universe. It's a world of gods on different planets with lots of government factions where people's destiny can change on a dime. That needs setup. It's not like Final Fantasy VII, where the only thing you need are the characters' motivations and the knowledge that the Shinra Company is destroying the planet. You don't need anything else. The stakes are set, and then you can establish things like the Cetra and Genova and Sephiroth, and the story can grow organically. And clearly, 13's opening is trying to evoke Final Fantasy VII. What with the main character who's named after weather, the fact that it starts on a train, and then you fight a giant scorpion robot alongside a black party member who shoots guns. Hell, I think the only reason Nora exists is to be an Avalanche stand-in. Only instead of having Biggs and Wedge, you have Godot and LeBro. Wait, Snow, Godot, and LeBro. Okay. How about, let's start the game with a 2-minute narration. Have some establishing shots of Cocoon high above Gran Pulse. Explain that all of humanity lives on this artificial world. Briefly mention the War of Transgression. You know, like when Final Fantasy VI brought up the War of the Magi. You need to establish things early. Otherwise, why would I think that this beach location is actually inside a giant metal ball in the sky? But Clement, that's what the data logs are for. Nobody wants to stop and read a glossary after every cutscene. It's homework. It's something that stops you dead in your tracks to read up on things that you'd much rather learn about in a cutscene. There's a difference between finding a note written by characters that helps drive the plot and reading an emotionless book report about how the Sanctum government functions. By the end of the game, sure, you'll understand everything you need to know about the story. But that doesn't make it good storytelling. It's not a compliment to say that the game is easier to follow on a second playthrough. It just means you have context where previously there was none. On a structural basis, the plot has issues, but when we start getting deep into it, it just gets more confusing and annoying, and it's not particularly enjoyable. Also, the idea of wanting to do a second playthrough, no thank you. Why wouldn't I want to replay this? Well, now it's time to talk about the gameplay. Look, I think it's admirable that Square Enix wants to shake it up and change the formula all the time. They've always been updating how we play these games, introducing job systems, active time battles, materia, you name it. But there's always been this internal consistency. I want the turn-based battles, I want to enjoy the world, I want the usual musical cues. A series should never stagnate, and innovation is always welcomed. But I know what I love about this franchise, and if your sequel doesn't deliver on what makes these games so special, well, it's disappointing. Let's just get into it. So positive things out of the way, I actually appreciate that the game goes back to using battle transitions. Instead of having a single-player MMO feel like Final Fantasy XII did, when you encounter enemies on the field, it does cut to a special battle arena, and the game does have a battle theme. I missed that. I just think it makes battles feel more special and exhilarating. The combat in 12 was just so matter-of-fact. I want an event. And the load times are incredibly quick. The second you run into an enemy, it cuts to the battle so fast that it actually feels like the old Super Nintendo games. And like in 12, there are no random encounters. When you run around, you can see your enemies coming. You want to fight? Then run into them. You don't? Then just avoid them. Simple as that. They've also added a preemptive strike mechanic where you can actually sneak up on your enemies when their backs are turned. Not only does this give you a free hit, it also puts your foes at the top of their stagger state, which is really helpful in ending the fight quicker. Let's see, other positives. Oh! I like that the treasure chests aren't random. They were in 12, and I didn't like that, so yeah. And that's about it. Those are all the positives. Okay, no more pussyfooting around.
Where do I start?
The opening 2 hours are so boring. At the beginning, you have absolutely nothing. You can attack and use items. That's it. The battles themselves use a variation of the active time battle system. You still have gauges that fill up before you can do an action, but this time around, you can actually perform multiple moves with one turn. For example, a basic attack will drain 1 bar from the gauge, and since you start off with 2 bars, you can do 2 attacks per turn. And then there's the area of effect ability, Blitz. Blitz uses 2 bars, so if you want to use it, you can only do so once. These are your only moves when you start the game. And then I noticed that the top command is Auto Attack. Not attack, Auto Attack. When you select this option, the game chooses your commands for you. Since the game is constantly moving, going into abilities, selecting attack 2 times, picking the target, all of that is going to take much longer. So, I guess to speed it up, I'll just press auto attack. And then I realize that Zaz is fighting alongside me. He's doing his own thing, and I wonder, how can I control what he does in battle? You don't. And you never will. So at this point, the game is playing itself. I mean, okay, if my characters get hurt, I do have to pay attention to use a potion on them. But that's actually a pretty rare occurrence. Why? Because after every battle, your HP is fully restored. If you make it to the end of a fight, you don't actually have to worry about fixing your party. I know some might see this as a positive, but for me, it just makes the gameplay so dull. You don't have any variety for the first 2 hours. I just mash auto attack every single battle, and the game keeps awarding me 5-star rankings. Yeah, this game is a ranking system now. Huzzah. And I know the beginning of the game should be easy, but why does this last for 2 hours? That's a long time to be in baby mode. That's the length of a movie! This very video is shorter than that. In that amount of time in Final Fantasy VII, I could have blown up 2 reactors and slept at the flower girl's house. And on my first playthrough, I didn't even realize that I wasn't getting experience for any of it. Yeah, 2 hours of gameplay and no stat growth whatsoever. God, what a bad opening. So let's fast forward. When the party gets transformed into l'Cie, the game adds a new mechanic, the paradigm shift. This is one of the most important tools of the combat as it allows your characters to switch between 6 different job classes. The Commando does physical attacks. The Ravager does magical attacks. The Medic casts healing magic. Cure, Curaga, Esuna, they focus on restoring the party and never attack enemies. The Sentinel is the tank. They aggravate their foes and then turtle up to boost their defense to handle the punishment they're about to receive. And then you have the Synergist and Saboteur. The Synergist buffs the party. Haste, Protect, Shell, all of that stuff. The Saboteur does the opposite. It slows down enemies, lowers defenses, uses poison. It makes your opposition easy pickings. And those are the 6 paradigm roles. Because the battles are so automatic, this is where you feel the most agency. You can't tell your teammates what to do, so having a restrictive class list lets you manage the combat a little. And you're allowed to customize up to 6 different combinations to switch around with. But that's it. You can't just freeze the action mid-fight to create more paradigm options. Whatever you enter the battle with, that's all you get. And it should be mentioned that when you start the game, not every character can use any paradigm. Lightning is allowed to be a commando, a ravager, and a medic. She cannot be a sentinel, saboteur, or synergist. So you must be thinking, ooh, I'll have to assemble good party setups so that I have lots of tools at my disposal. Oh man, I'm sorry, but no. You don't choose your party. Did you think it was my decision to have Lightning, Snow, and Vanille for these battles? The game makes that call. Even if you have everyone at your disposal, it won't even give you the option to switch people out. 1 second I'm playing as Zaz, Vanille, and Hope, and then it arbitrarily decides that Lightning will take point now. So go away, Hope. I open the menu and his portrait's still there. I'm thinking, I must be missing something. There has to be a way to switch him in. And no, there isn't. So the gameplay feels very restrictive. I'm not really given any freedom on how I approach the game. Everyone who plays this will be using the same paradigms and the same party. And without any meaningful choices, you always feel like the game is holding your hand the entire way through. Well, you have magic now, right? What about weaknesses, immunities? Surely that should give you agency over what's going on. And yes, enemies do still have resistances and stuff. But again, you can't control what your teammates do. So in order to make sure they don't shoot fire onto the fire monster, the game encourages you to use the Libra spell. Libra identifies weaknesses and immunities, and once you do that, you don't need to think about it. The party will use the weaknesses and avoid the resisted stuff, and then you can just auto-attack and watch the game play itself. You don't even have to worry about MP. With l'Cie, magic is infinite. You can shoot as many ice balls as you want, you'll never run out. Now there is one mechanic that adds a little direction to the gameplay, and that is the stagger system. So in the top right corner, you see this meter under the name of the enemy you're fighting. You deal damage, and not only does the meter fill up, you also increase the percentage number. The higher the percentage, the more damage you'll do. And when the meter is filled all the way, you get an extra 200%, and then you can unleash mega damage. You get a lot of different benefits depending on the enemy. Like sometimes you fight these giant armored robots, right? And simply relying on physical attacks to kill them will take way too long. So, you're encouraged to stagger them. And once you do, they open up and expose this big bright battery. And then they're easy pickings as they completely stand there and do nothing. When it comes to the big giant berserker machines, staggering them makes them susceptible to air juggling. When your characters go to engage, the first attack gets replaced with launch, and then you can send them flying to attack them in the sky where they can't fight back at all. And if you have Ravagers pelting them with magic spells while they're still up there, you can keep the juggle going indefinitely. It's pretty rad. Again, stagger does many different things depending on the foe. They don't always sit there and they can't all be juggled, but it is the meta goal of every single battle. Since it multiplies your strength and lowers their armor, it's what you always want to happen with every enemy with lots of health. You're encouraged to use Ravagers not for the elemental weakness, but because using magic helps stagger enemies faster. That being said, I wouldn't use a team of 3 Ravagers the entire time, as it won't slow the cooldown that happens. But Commandos can. As long as you have one person hitting the enemy with physicals, you can keep the meter stable as a table. Since you need to switch out to a Sentinel or Medic to recover from damage, this gives your opponents time to rebalance from the stagger you're doing. So it's an interesting balancing act. You gotta heal up when you can, but you have to keep up a relentless assault. If you're just standing around deciding what abilities to select, you're giving the enemy time to recover. So in order to save time, you just auto-attack. And believe me, you need to stagger bosses. If you're not breaking them down, these fights drag on forever. Especially if you set the battle speed to slow, where fights can take up to 15 minutes to complete, even with 5-star rankings. Jesus. The combat needed this stagger system. It helps bring direction to all this computer-controlled action. But honestly, once you understand that, every fight feels the same. Start with relentless assault, kill the weaker enemies first, chip away the armor, and yeah, that's the whole game. I remember going through the Palamecia and audibly groaning at the fact that the next battle was going to have 3 armored mechs. You know why? Because it meant that I had to individually build up each enemy's stagger meter twice in order to kill them as quickly as I could. Oh, I got the 5-star ranking, and it only took me 4 minutes. They expected me to take 8. And spoilers, but the Palamecia is a 4-hour dungeon. I must have fought 60 battles in that one area alone. And that's a really long time when all you're doing is pushing the same button over and over again. Auto attack, auto attack, auto attack. I fucking hate this game's automation. I'm not doing anything. There's no incentive to select abilities manually. Every ability exists to complement the brain-dead AI, and that's why this game is missing all of the cool extras from the other games. I can't be a thief and steal loot. I can't be a blue mage and absorb enemy abilities. Without manual control of my teammates, I couldn't even choose to use those abilities if I wanted to. You know, at least with Final Fantasy XII's Gambit system, you could override the Gambits and select your teammates' commands. Oh look, I just complimented the Gambit system. Like I said, you start to appreciate the things you didn't like when something worse comes along. And I haven't even brought up the worst part yet. Oh, I remember everyone else's big problem with the gameplay. So get this, when your teammates lose all their health, they get KO'd. Shocking, right? But you can save them. Just have a medic cast a rise or use a Phoenix down. Simple. However, if the leader character, aka the character you're playing, loses all their health, battle's finished. Game over. You lose. Come again? Yeah, if you're full health and then this random attack catches you off guard, too bad, the fight's over. And the big question on everyone's mind is, why? Why would you do that? The Final Fantasy series doesn't do that! That being said, I will compliment one more thing about the game. At least when you get a game over, the game gives you the option to retry the battle. In the previous games, dying meant being kicked back to the main menu and having to load an old save. At least here, you can instantly jump back in and try again. I approve. Though they probably added this feature because the game is so trial and error. Honestly, I don't even think Final Fantasy XIII's that difficult. But still, it's like sometimes you get put in the red, so you paradigm shift to bring out a medic. And oh, what the hell was that? I died in the shift animation! Yeah, sure, I was too slow, but here's the thing that bugs me. When you initially paradigm shift, it takes 3 seconds to individually show each character change classes. But then on the second one, it only takes 1 second. It's so much faster! What the fuck? Why can't the first transformation be that fast? It's just lame. Only the leader has access to items, so your teammates can't use Phoenix Downs or potions. I guess that's the logic to why, if the leader dies, well, gotta pull the plug, I guess. But that doesn't stop it from being annoying. In Palom, there's an enemy type that uses an ability called Gatling Gun. If it hits you, it kills you. Now let's look at that situation. I knew what I had to do to survive that. Sentinel up and boost my defense. I saw Gatling Gun was about to happen, but it takes too long to provoke the machine and activate Steel Guard. So I have to restart the fight now because I made one tiny mistake. You know how annoying it is to fight something for 8 minutes, only to slip up once and lose all that progress? And yes, I had to provoke the machine. If Hope was the target, his death may as well be a game over too. Phoenix Downs are super expensive. I need to spend way too much money to buy one, so they're kind of a rare commodity. I'd only use them during boss fights and nothing else. Without Hope's Ravager abilities, one person can't stagger enemies. He's also my healer and my buff machine. These battles rely on teamwork. If he dies, I'm useless. So often during the game when a teammate died, well great, now I'm screwed. I may as well just stop and restart now. And that isn't fun. Now 13 is certainly not the only RPG to do this. In fact, one of my favorite franchises, the Persona series, does this as well. But you know, at least in those games, the combat is turn-based and a lot more methodical. And the leader character has an advantage over everyone else. He can switch personas and completely change his resistances. Don't get me wrong, I'd still be happy if they changed this for Persona 6, but the combat is far better than 13, so it isn't a deal breaker for me. It's just, 13's combat sucks. The automation does not benefit from having this kind of trial and error. And in Final Fantasy XIII 2, they fixed it so that your leader character could die. Why? because it makes the game better. Ugh. Anywho, I need to take a break from the combat, because now it's time to talk about how this game is structured. And this is another key problem that completely destroys the fun and replayability of this title. So after becoming l'Cie, the party basically breaks off and does their own thing. Snow, not wanting to leave his crystal bride behind, makes everyone else leave without him. So the 4 remaining heroes keep going, encountering resistance from the Sanctum until they end up in the Vile Peaks, a brown, ugly junkyard filled with relics of the War of Transgression. They get talking, and Lightning decides to do something drastic.
There's no place for l'Cie to hide. No. They want to fight. Let's take it to the Sanctum's door.
Eden? The Sanctum seat of power. Oh, that's a great idea. Something happens to Eden, it's lights out Cocoon. You want that?
I'm after the Sanctum. I'm not out to destroy the world.
And then Lightning leaves. Not wanting to babysit the others, she takes off on her quest to bring down the Sanctum fal'Cie. But Hope, realizing that he's better off with the badass Commando, decides to chase after her. And this is perfect because Lightning's going to the city of Palampolum for transport to Eden. And that just so happens to be where Hope is from. Might as well keep him around. As for Zaz and Vanille, well, they just leave, even though they don't really have a clear goal in mind. And yeah, the party's all split up, and for the first 16 hours, you fight completely in groups of 2. Oh, did you think you were going to be managing creative paradigm combinations? No. You have to deal with our 16-hour tutorial, and you're going to like it! There's just no variety. Zaz and Vanille in the Vile Peaks, Zaz and Vanille in the Waterscape, in Nautilus, in Palamecia. Oh my god, let me change my party! If it were just the combat, that'd be one thing. But oh my lord, the level design. Something I didn't mention about the boring 2-hour opening is that there was just no exploration or discovery. You start off on a big bridge, and you just go down the lone pathway. Switch to Snow, keep going down the pathway. You're in the Vestige, and it's just a hallway. You'd think with its glowy doors and stuff there might have been some puzzles, but no. Just a linear pathway. Whatever, it's the beginning, I'm sure it'll open up later. So next you're on the frozen lake Brescia. It's a lake! And the frozen waves manage to arrange themselves so that you're just going down a pathway. Oh, sometimes you'll see the map go off the beaten path, but at the end is only a single treasure chest and nothing more. So you go back the way you came and reconnect with the hallway. Go to the temple, it's a hallway. Go to the junkyard, it's a hallway. Go to a green, beautiful forest with lots of life and scenery, it's a hallway. What the fuck? Then Lightning and Hope cut through the Sanctum's ecology chamber and... why is there a roadblock? I actually see a split path and I'm not allowed to leave. I can see freedom and they won't let me take it. When I first played this, I was in total shock. Just absolute disbelief. How could it be this lazy, this uninspired? There was nothing to the level design. It really was as bad as everyone joked. It didn't matter if you were on an airship, inside an amusement park, running through the streets of Palampolum, it never stopped being a hallway. Just one entrance, one exit, and a few obvious treasure chests along the way. At one point, it teased me with the ability to walk around Bodom. There were NPCs with dialogue, no enemies to fight. I was really looking forward to learning more about Cocoon. You know, since the game was doing such a bad job telling its story. But you only visit one hut, it takes about 5 minutes to go through, and then it was back to the hallway. Afterwards, I understood why all the save points were also the game's shops. Final Fantasy XIII doesn't have any towns. Fuck. This destroys the magic of Final Fantasy. There's no grand sense of adventure. Everything feels artificial. How can I care about any of this? It's just fighting and walking, and there's only one thing driving me to push through, the small hope that this game might get better. And because I was such a huge fanboy, man, was I holding out hope. Honestly, I wanted so hard to like this game, and it kept fighting me at every turn. Anytime I ever see people defend this game, a lot of them always feel the need to compare the linear hallways to the world of Spira from Final Fantasy X. Because yes, the Mi'ihen High Road is a hallway, the Macalania Forest is a hallway, Mount Gagazet, also a hallway. And sure, the level design could be better there too, But this always feels like a misguided deflection that doesn't see the forest for the trees. It's not just about the maps themselves, it's about the variety. My issues with 13's execution is that mechanically, the game is as deep as a puddle. There's no puzzles to solve, no mini-games to play, no world to interact with. And Final Fantasy X delivers on all of those things. Even putting aside the fact that I like its gameplay better, at least the world of Spira is filled with people to talk to, towns to explore, multiple cultures, be they Ronso, Guado, Albed, or Hypello. Tuak Drendra Rija Ik Uf Mikikya. With Titus being a fish out of water, everyone tells him what the world is about, thus helping inform the player. I certainly didn't have to stop to read data logs in 10. The hallway never stops, so there's no downtime. And worst of all, every area is way too big. Macalania Forest doesn't take more than an hour to go through. The Gapra Whitewood, 2 hours. The Ark, 3 hours. Palom Polum, 4 hours. It's exhausting.
I could sit here for hours.
Fuck you! How could anyone enjoy replaying this when it chooses your party and paradigms, thus removing any kind of experimentation? At least in 10, I had my full party early. At least the Sphere Grid had branching pathways that let you develop your characters differently. Oh god, I haven't mentioned the Crystarium yet. Ugh, there's still so much to bitch about. So yes, when you first become l'Cie, you can finally gain experience, which comes in the form of crystal points. And these points are used to fill in the ability slots of all your paradigms. So you spend points, the line fills up, and hey! HP plus 30, magic plus 7. You just got yourself some permanent stat buffs. And if it's the Ravager section, you'll gain new magic spells like Thundara and Thundaga. If it's the Medic section, Curaga, Esena, stuff like that. It's very similar to the Sphere Grid. Except for, you know, its lack of freedom. You are not going to be breaking locks and entering other Crystariums. You are not going to fill in nodes with certain bonuses. You're not going to teleport around or do anything interesting. Instead, you just follow the line. Because, and say it with me kids, it's completely linear. Oh sure, you can prioritize which of the 3 paradigms gets points first, but oops! I ended up filling all 3! I've only been playing for 4 hours. How did that happen? Your progress is limited by story chapter. Yep, I face off with the big Garuda boss, and afterwards it tells me that the Crystarium has expanded. So now I can get stronger and finally use all the points I've been building up. Hooray. You know, the great thing about RPGs is that you don't need to be that smart. If you're having trouble with a boss and can't think of a good strategy to beat him, you can always go back and grind for XP until you're a freaking powerhouse. And that was certainly valid with all of the previous Final Fantasies. But 13 is not fun. It wants the game a certain way, and you're not allowed to break it. Again, I don't think 13 is that difficult, but it's still disappointing to see how limited everything is. Why did they choose this structure of splitting up the characters? Imagine having everyone in the party from the get-go. Imagine having access to all 6 paradigms and having to decide how you were going to grow these characters. Do I make Vanille a Synergist or Saboteur? Wow! An actual choice to make! Instead, we spend more than 20 hours in hand-holdy tutorial world. I don't know who this game is made for. The casuals are going to find it too confusing, and the hardcores will find it too alienating. And speaking of alienating, boy oh boy, they screwed up weapon management too. Yeah, it's great that treasure chests aren't random and that you can find tons of materials, gil, and weapons inside them, but at the end of the day, it never felt special. So 6 hours in, you finally gain access to the upgrade shop. This allows you to use all of the materials you've been picking up in battles to enhance your weapons and make them stronger. And I mean every material, whether it's a molted tail or silicone oil or murky ooze, everything can be used to upgrade. So by leveling up weapons, their strength and magic stats increase, and yeah, awesome, right? Well, it is until you pick up a new weapon. Oh, a new gunblade? Cool. I'm never gonna use it. I mean, it's got quick stagger, and I'm sure that'd be useful, but I mean, look at its stats. It's weaker. That defeats the whole purpose. Maybe at base level it was stronger than my current weapon, but I just spent so much time and resources building this thing up, so why would I switch weapons now? And there's the dilemma. Either I wait to upgrade until I finally get the weapon I want, which I'd only know about through reading a guide, or I start upgrading weapons right away. Regardless what I choose to do, I won't use the other weapons. And finding new loot is supposed to be one of the best parts of an RPG. Finding something super awesome that makes me stronger. Saving enough money to buy that badass battle axe. It's what I live for with these games. With 13, weapons take a really long time to upgrade. I spent the entire game mastering Lightning's gunblade. You never know how long it'll take to max out and complete a weapon. It's always a random crapshoot. I couldn't imagine collecting the loot necessary for each character's ultimate weapons. Having to master these things over and over and over again. What a grind. And then it gets really complicated when you discover that it's not just weapons, but accessories that can be upgraded too. Characters can only equip those two things. They never have to worry about armor. So I got Snow as the Sentinel, and I wondered to myself, how much health should the guy have? I've given him the Platinum Bangle, but maybe I should upgrade it to increase the hit points some more. But this takes attention away from the weapons, which uses up all the loot I'm collecting from enemies. And by the way, enemies don't drop gil when you defeat them. You still only get money by selling loot, just like in 12, and if you focus too much on upgrades, you never make cash. Except for when I killed a whole bunch of Sanctum troops because they drop credit chips which pay out pretty nicely. But even with that cash, I didn't want to buy weapons, I kept finding new accessories, and since health restores at the end of fights and I have a medic class, I never needed to buy anything anyway. I've never felt so disengaged with items in Gil like I have in 13. This shouldn't be so hard to figure out. If you must have a crafting system, just handle it like it was Final Fantasy IX, where the shops actually told you what you could make and with what items. It was still enjoyable to find new equipment because the crafting never got in the way. What must go through the developers' minds when they come up with stuff like this? Do they not enjoy fun? Well, we've crossed the 50-minute mark. I should probably get back to the story. So after the group splits up, the plot becomes very character-driven. It's just a lot of battling the PSICOM Special Forces and traveling around with no clear goal in mind.
So, where are we headed?
Dunno.
You don't know?
Then what battles do we fight? And against who? Tell me that!
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet!
Instead, the cutscenes focus on Hope's anger towards Snow. Lightning trying to teach this kid how to survive. And since she's teaching him to fight without sympathy, Hope comes to a dark conclusion.
It's his fault, and he needs to pay for it.
Snow didn't kill your mother. The Sanctum did.
I know getting revenge on him won't bring her back, but sorry won't cut it.
A big chunk of Lightning's character growth is realizing that her closed-off, distant attitude towards things may be doing more harm than good. First with Sarah, and now with Hope.
You told me to fight!
I made a mistake!
It's these thoughts and feelings that help Lightning lower her guard around the people in her life. And it ultimately leads to a reconciliation between her and Snow when they meet up again. And that's kind of it for Lightning. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's still a badass in the action scenes, she still leads the charge against the big bad, but she doesn't have much going on in terms of story. I just think for some it'll be underwhelming because she's the poster girl of the game. Her character exists to be another sword-wielding hero with an edge, much like Cloud and Squall before her. But there are no revelations, no big twists or reveals, the story doesn't hinge on her personal quest. She's just a soldier with a chip on her shoulder. But that being said, I like Lightning. No, really, I do. Not only does Ali Hillis do a great job voicing the character, but she is always so consistently fun to watch.
Nice gun.
She's just fucking cool. I know that's a bit shallow, but I appreciate that she was a competent but angry person who took nobody's shit, especially Snow.
It's over!
I don't blame her for hating Snow. The dude's a colossal idiot.
Gonna need a plan.
Since when have heroes ever needed plans?
Heroes don't run from fights.
The heroes never die.
This fucking guy. When he isn't saying stupid, corny stuff like that, he's usually just brimming with a naive optimism about everything.
Don't worry. I'll handle the bad guys.
Despite the fact that he's hilariously incompetent. How he has this much courage to dive headfirst into danger, I'll never know. This is a guy who, after proposing to his girlfriend, proceeded to drive her into the fireworks display in order to get a better look. What? You almost got your fiancé killed, you jackass! Just the look of the guy, his bro facial hair, the unkempt mop underneath his do-rag. I can't decide if this is the best or worst character portrait I've ever seen. And his relationship with Sarah is so weird. His commitment to this unbreakable, eternal bond they have. He must scream her name a million times in this game. When I first played this, I got weird vibes seeing the couple together because he's so much taller than her. Like, Lightning's supposed to be 21 during the events of the game, and Sarah's her younger sister. One who wears a plaid skirt and stockings. So, she's still in school, right? Where do these two meet each other? But you know, at the end of the day, I can't deny that Snow is a little endearing. His unshakable confidence in the face of danger is insane, but it's also pretty awesome. He's like Goku, where you know he's a major idiot, but you can't help but root for the guy anyway. Troy Baker gives him so much charisma and gusto, it's obvious why he's the leader of Nora. I might think his hero shtick is stupid, but he does do the right thing and try to save people whenever he can. He doesn't even bat an eye at the idea of saving the whole damn world, and well, that's fun. It's so easy to make fun of the guy, and yet, I just can't hate him. You do you, Snow. You do you. Now, if we want to talk characters who aren't fun to watch, well then sorry, I have to point at Hope. I know the defense people always give him. He's a teenager, he saw his mom die, he's a fugitive whose life is ruined thanks to the fal'Cie. Of course he's gonna be moody and have outbursts and freak out and be a complete wiener. He's a kid, that's what they do. And sure, that's probably realistic, but it doesn't make him likable. I just think so often the kid is such a brat to everyone.
All of this is your and Sarah's fault!
Watch it!
Leave me alone.
Hey!
Snow didn't kill your mother.
Whose side are you on?
The side of truth.
The Sea are not human.
Listen, you, that's enough!
It's just so frustrating to see a character get schooled and corrected time and time again, and they never learn from it.
She got tricked. By Snow. He used her!
The kid is in so much denial about the whole situation, and the game makes it clear he saw everything. It was a volunteer job. Snow gave her a second chance to reconsider, and when tragedy struck, he even went out of his way to try and save her. Hope saw that. But no, he spends the whole game fuming about how Snow deserves to die, even with Lightning telling him that this isn't the way. When Snow comes back to the party, he and Hope have to split apart from the rest of the group as they dodge Sanctum soldiers in Palom Polum. And again, Snow's heroic deeds should be the thing that make Hope realize that killing the guy would probably be the biggest mistake of his life. When Snow warns him that they're going to have to get into some fights to save some people from being purged, the kid looks conflicted. As he should be! I knew a confrontation was inevitable, but the outcome completely made me turn on the kid because he kept doubling down. Also, this is one of the most melodramatic scenes I've ever seen in a Final Fantasy.
Even if you're l'Cie, you gotta keep fighting.
And what if that gets people around you involved?
What?
What happens when your actions end up ruining someone's life? What if someone dies? What then, Snow? How do you pay for what you've done?
I can't! When someone's dead, when someone's gone, words are useless.
So that's it? People die and you just run away?
I know!
Come on.
You're running from what you deserve!
Why don't you tell me what I deserve?
The same fate!
And as Snow dangles on the edge of the building, Hope prepares a knife so that he can murder the guy. And he doesn't change his mind. The only reason he doesn't go through with it is because a Sanctum airship spots the two and fires missiles onto the roof. The explosions send Hope flying, and Snow, once again being heroic, needing to make up for his failure to save his mother, catches the kid and protects him from a 7-story drop through tons of scaffolding and lots of hard-ass boxes. Ow! Snow survives this, because of course he does. And that is finally what it takes for Hope to realize that maybe, just maybe, Snow's a good person and that he shouldn't kill him. Fuck off. I don't care if he's a kid. He spends the whole game whining and being a prick, and even with all that conflict inside him, he still goes through with killing the dude. That makes him unlikable. This game is a follow-up to Final Fantasy XII, and in that game, Vaughn blamed Bosch von Ronsenberg for his brother's death, even though it wasn't Bosch's fault. And once the explanation is made, once Vaughn sees the upstanding guy that Bosch really is, he forgives him. Fairly quickly, too. What he didn't do was hold a grudge for 15 hours. He didn't go, well, it's your fault that he was even in the throne room to begin with, so you still got him killed. I know by the end, Hope and Snow are friends. I know he steps up and helps save the world. But to me, he just never earned that growth. Of the group, he's the cynic, the pessimist, a codependent coward who goes through tons of mood swings. If he was likable, maybe I could have enjoyed this character arc a little. But he isn't, and he still tries to kill Snow, so I don't. Not a fan. But enough about him, let's return to Zaz and Vanille, the duo who are wandering aimlessly together, completely unaware of how their fates are intertwined. And the player is too, because we have to keep waiting for flashback scenes in order to understand who they are. Either way, Zaz is actually one of the better characters in the game. Someone who's often used as comic relief, he's just a normal guy dealing with a bad situation. It's so nice to have a level-headed straight man acting as a contrast to all of this ridiculous nonsense. He has some of the most natural dialogue in the game, especially when you pair him up with the walking anime trope that is Vanille.
But Psycom's elites are cold-blooded beasts. They hit the field and it's game over.
Uh-oh. Then let's run away. Ciao!
Hey, wait!
Rewatching these cutscenes again, I couldn't believe how childish and out of place she felt during the entire opening.
All right, last one.
Yeah.
Push comes to shove. Keep him safe.
You know you might actually have to shoot someone, right? People are dying all around you! And when Hope's mother dies, this is honest to God, Vanille's consoling words to him.
It's too much, isn't it? Face it later. Ciao!
What is with this chick? I thought this was supposed to be an obvious setup to her being a god or something. Like maybe she's actually a fal'Cie who's been alive millions of years and the plight of humans is just amusing to her. And no, that's not it. She has a secret past, but that has nothing to do with how she's reacting to all of this. Like, she just went through this ordeal with the fal'Cie. She's been branded, her fate is sealed. And she doesn't give a shit!
All set. Okay, good night.
Not a care in the world.
And Vanille is the narrator, by the way. She keeps chiming in to tell the audience how she was feeling and what she really wanted to do. And look, being scared and putting on a brave face is one thing. This, on the other hand, is just bad writing. I don't know if something was lost in translation, but she completely undermines every scene she's in. She is so cartoonishly over the top. When you're breaking my suspension of disbelief in a Final Fantasy game, you screwed up. I mean, there's a lot of goofy stuff that I'm willing to let slide. Like the fact that Zaz has a baby chocobo hanging out in his afro.
I'm not a l'Cie.
What? Yes, in every scene that Zaz is in, he actually has a baby chocobo chick hiding out inside his hair. The dude is lucky it doesn't shit on him constantly.
1, 2, 3, we go.
What are you up to? Hey!
Chocobos do not tolerate perverts. So now I'm sure you're asking, why? Well, as we find out through flashbacks, Zaz was an ordinary pilot until he decided to take his son Dodge sightseeing, and the first place they visited was the Uridae Gorge Energy Plant, a facility that's actually powered by a Sanctum fal'Cie. And while there, Zaz picked up the pet chocobo as a gift to surprise his son with. Unfortunately, Dodge ran off on his own, so his father experienced some traumatic heavy rain action.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
Meanwhile, the plant starts going on high alert because a couple of intruders have disturbed the fal'Cie. And those intruders were Vanille and a woman named Fang. And buckle up, kids, because through flashbacks and exposition, it is revealed that Fang and Vanille are not from Cocoon. They're from Gran Pulse. They were once Pulse l'Cie who took up the focus of destroying Cocoon. And Vanille actually used her power to become Ragnarok, the very thing everyone saw in their visions. And the giant hole, the cracked opening of Cocoon? Yeah, Vanille did that. Centuries ago. Well shit, that's quite the reveal. Whatever they did helped them fulfill their focus, and the two women would wake up in present day aboard the Bodum Vestige where Sarah's fal'Cie was. For as it turns out, turning to crystal is not a death sentence. You just get frozen for a very long time until you finally wake up. Vanille remembered everything they had done, but Fang had complete amnesia. Not only that, but she retained her l'Cie powers even though the brand on her arm seemed to have frozen. Vanille, not wanting to hurt any more people, lied to Fang and said that she lost her memory as well. So, in a new era, in a new location, Fang figures, why not check out the Sanctum Fal'Cie to see if that'll kickstart their memory? But I guess Sanctum Fal'Cie can smell when a Pulse l'Cie is in their presence, so shit goes horribly wrong and someone gets caught in the crossfire. Zaz's son, Dodge. He gets branded a Sanctum l'Cie, and the two girls make a run for it before anyone can find them. But the security was tight, so in order to protect Vanille, Fang makes her run away while she fights them off. And so the girls were separated, which is why Vanille was in Bodum and loaded onto a train for the Purge. As for Zaz, when he discovers his son is a l'Cie, he goes to the Sanctum for help and they collaborate with him in order to fulfill his son's focus. Turns out Dodge can now sense Fal'Cie, and that's how the Sanctum discovered the one in Bodum. And since Zaz didn't want his son to become a rock zombie, he chose to be purged. Because surely Dodge's focus is to destroy the Pulse Fal'Cie. And that's why he was so willing to help Lightning find the thing. Not that anyone would know that from the way he was acting. Anywho, when Vanille asks if Zaz has any family, he talks about Dodge and the energy plant, and Vanille's responsible for what happened.
It really only happened because Dodge found that Pulse Fal'Cie.
Don't blame him.
Yeah, you're right. It was that scum from Pulse behind it.
You know, it just occurs to me that Vanille's outfit is like the worst thing she could be wearing. The fur skirt, the bracelets, the tribal accessories. I mean, come on. Everyone on Cocoon is living in a future sci-fi world. Their fashion is way more modern and sophisticated. She should stick out like a sore thumb, especially if she goes into crowds of people, which they do. Wanting to go the opposite way of Palom Polum, Zaz and Vanille decide, hey, let's go to Nautilus, the city that never sleeps. This place is basically a glorified amusement park, and I'm sorry, but this just kills me. You write a scenario where your characters need to escape. Where do they go? They should go to an amusement park where there's a special play, roller coasters, and ooh, gotta have chocobos. Cool. So are we gonna be making a lot of minigames then? What? No, that'd be too much work. Nah, the Sanctum finds them and then they just get into battles again. Like, am I entitled? Am I just a spoiled brat for thinking that this is a waste? Why would you decide to build an amusement park level if you aren't going to do anything with it? The obvious comparison is the Gold Saucer from Final Fantasy VII. It had plays, it had roller coasters, it had chocobo racing, and so much more. So much more. Square, you used to be so good at this. Remember the Millennial Fair from Chrono Trigger? One of my favorite games growing up as a kid was the Super Nintendo game The Legend of the Mystical Ninja. The third level is Amusement Park, and it was a quick level if you wanted to speed through it, but instead I spent so much time there because it had horse racing, mazes, game shows, whack-a-mole, so many fun diversions to play around with. And that was a 2D beat-em-up game, for Christ's sake! I know 13 was expensive to make, but all you had to do was make one thing. Only one thing. Let us compete in chocobo races. That's it. That's all I'd want. And you couldn't even do that. I'm sorry, but I hate when this game teases me with great things. I wanted 13 to be good. I really did. But yes, as I said before, all you do here is fight Sanctum troops. Why? Well, they still have Dodge in their custody. Not only can he sense Fal'Cie, but also l'Cie. And so, out of nowhere, Zaz's son comes running to his papa and,
Dodge! Wait! Come back!
He fulfills his focus. That focus being to find the rogue l'Cie who entered the energy plant. And with the most conveniently hidden surveillance cameras ever, the Sanctum shows Zaz that Vanille was responsible. This leads to a confrontation between the two l'Cie.
Shoot me! For your son.
You think you die and everything will be sugar and rainbows? Shooting you won't help. Neither will living.
And this is when Zaz's Eidolon wakes up to battle him. I haven't talked about that yet, have I? Well, it's worth mentioning this game does have summons. Odin, Shiva, Bahamut, the usual mythological beasts this series always has. This time around, each of the summons are connected to one party member, and whenever they encounter high intensity and stress, the Eidolon wakes up to confront their master and see if they are worthy. This means battling them. And I don't like these fights. Instead of just being a regular boss, these encounters act as some kind of puzzle. You have to figure out how to fill their Gestalt meter so that you can tame them and acquire their power. However, there is a time limit. They cast Doom on you as soon as the fight begins, so you have to fill the meter as fast as you can. Now, you don't really need a guide or anything. As long as you simply use the Libra spell, you'll understand what actions need to be performed. But that doesn't stop it from being trial and error. It's so strict with its time limit. You need to know exactly when you should be in Sentinel mode, when you need to cast magic, and if you even take half a minute to really grasp what needs to be done, you won't fill it up in time. And first-time players might not realize that you need to initiate the Gestalt when it pops up. If you think the meter isn't filled up enough and you don't notice the button prompt, you'll have to retry just because of that. These fights aren't hard, they're just drawn out because it's a puzzle with no leeway. But yes, once you conquer the Eidolon, the character who called it will be able to use them in battle. It's basically their persona. Shiva is Snow's persona. Odin is Lightning's persona. You know, with the automated teammates and the fact that the game ends when the leader dies, I genuinely wonder if they stole their ideas from Persona 3. Might as well. Persona 3 was a good game. But yes, you can call out Odin. He'll replace your teammates, and then, until its health is drained, it will fight alongside you. But, if you manage to fill up his Gestalt meter by attacking enemies, you can activate it to achieve a chain combo with various attacks. It does a lot of damage, and one benefit is that your entire party will be fully healed once the summon leaves. So it's not terrible. I mentioned that characters don't have magic points, but they do have technical points. In fact, using Libra always drains 1 TP. Using summons costs 3. This prevents you from spamming them over and over again during the course of the battle. My only knocks about the Eidolons is that they're not ideal for staggering enemies, and you only have access to the one the leader has. Because once again, teammates can't use items or technical abilities. So even though I'd like to use Alexander, I can't because I'd rather have Lightning as the leader. Like, why not just give us the option of using all 3 character summons? What, the leader can't tell Snow to call down Shiva? Bah! But again, their best quality is being able to heal people. If things are rough, try calling your persona for a second chance. I do think their designs are kind of interesting. In this game, Shiva isn't just one Ice Queen, but rather 2. And they actually fuse together in order to form a badass motorcycle. What the hell? That's awesome! Lightning can ride Odin's horse, Fang can ride atop Bahamut, and Zaz's Eidolon, Bernhilder, transforms into a goddamn dune buggy. What the hell are these things again? Saviors, huh? Okay then. I do think it's a huge missed opportunity that so many of these things turn into transportation, and yet you can't just drive Zaz's dune buggy in a big open field or anything. Again, this game could have been so much better. But enough about that, let's finally forward the plot, huh? I'm sure you think I have lots to cover, but honestly, once all the big reveals happen, the game just kinda ends directly afterwards. I haven't been talking about the villains because the game hasn't been showing them. Early on, we get a sneak preview of the Sanctum's Pope, their Primarch, Galanth Daisley, who ends up being the big bad villain of the game. And then, nothing. We never see nor hear about him ever again until the party actually has to confront him. Oh, the hot librarian chick who ambushes Zaz and Vanille? This is like one of 2 scenes she's in. I'm serious, she is barely a character. And then there's Yag Roche, a guy who on first glance looks like he'll be the main antagonist. I mean, look at the guy, he kinda looks like Sephiroth or something. But again, no. He's just a lackey who encounters everyone at Palom Polum and then shows up again for one final fight and dies without fanfare. There's nothing for me to say. And this is why the game feels so underdeveloped. And that's a shame because the entire premise flirts with some interesting ideas. Like how screwed up it is for Cocoon to be enacting these purges. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And not everyone in the Sanctum wants to do this. Most grunts want civilian casualties to a minimum and don't agree with how their leaders are handling things. But it's all to appease the ignorant masses, those afraid of the monsters that their government warned them about. There's an interesting discussion you could have about mob mentality and bigotry and fear of the unknown. The ideas are there, I just wish they did more with it. But anywho, things pick up when Snow gets ambushed by a whole bunch of Sanctum forces, and among them is Vanille's Pulse companion, Fang. The troops put Sarah aboard their airship, the Lindblum, and it's here that Snow discovers that his captors aren't actually on the Sanctum side. They're a rogue sleeper cell led by a general who doesn't approve of their Primarch's control. And that general is a man named Sid. He collected Fang and Snow in the hopes of gathering l'Cie to fight on his side and overthrow the villains who have chosen to purge people. And thus, when Lightning and Hope encounter resistance in Palom Polum, they also find themselves running into Snow and Fang. After becoming familiar with the Pulse Woman, Lightning and Snow discover that Sarah isn't lost, for turning into crystal is not a death sentence. Anywho, they run, have drama, reconcile, and things come to a head at Hope's home. I could talk about Hope's father and the anger that his son has for him, but it resolves itself pretty quick and this video's long enough as it is. Eventually, they all get picked up by Sid's forces, and while on board the Lindblum, they discover that Zaz and Vanille have been captured.
So the Primarch can stand in judgment of the villainous l'Cie, with their execution as the climax.
They're baiting us, trying to draw us out.
Yeah, that's right. Here are your friends. Come and get them.
If they're daring us to mount a rescue, I'll take that action. All in.
I'm all in with All Elite Wrestling!
So their plan, if you can call it that, is to use a Sanctum shuttle from the Lindblum to fly and sneak onto their main dreadnought, the Palamecia. Lindblum and Palamecia, yes, I know the references. You know a game's bad when you're actually getting nostalgic for Final Fantasy II. Oh, and Sid sends them, and only them, to go after the Primarch.
And we're supposed to take on all of them? I think the whole division's on board.
I don't care how many lackeys they've got. Bring them on. Vanille's in there.
I haven't really commented on Fang's character yet. Well, she's a brash, tough girl who takes no shit. Kinda like Lightning, but the difference between the two are their convictions and how Fang wears her heart on her sleeve.
Pulse and Cocoon can rot for all I care. If I don't figure out our focus soon, Vanille's gonna be a Seath. I'll tear down the sky if it'll save her.
See, that's interesting. That she would put Vanille's safety over the world's destruction is a really powerful declaration.
You turn Seath and there's no coming back. I'm not letting it end that way.
I'm not kidding when I say the world can burn if that's what it takes to save Vanille.
Like, of all the party members, Fang is easily the one character who would probably destroy Cocoon if given the chance. When you have statements like that, when the game presents interesting imagery, their body language when they reunite, it really caught my attention because I was like, huh, I don't think these two are just friends.
There's something I need to tell you.
Making me worry like that. We'll talk later, Missy.
So, what's on the agenda?
Yeah, the gay agenda. Like, okay, they never kiss or say that they're girlfriends, but I know subtext when I see it. I have watched a lot of Xena Warrior Princess. And awesome, I'm all for it. It kind of works in relation to the story. These two are the only characters from Gran Pulse in the whole entire game. Seriously, we never meet another person from Pulse. So them being gay actually adds an extra layer to the isolation they must feel on Cocoon. It shines the people's fear of Pulse in a completely new light. And considering the demographic that Final Fantasy appeals to, I think this series could use more LGBT characters. It's great to see.
Man, oh man, that Warrior of Light is such a dreamboat. And did you see the way he fought out there? He could rescue me from a giant goblin any day of the week.
But yes, our heroes board the Palamecia, and immediately they get spotted and the alarm goes off. Great plan, Sid! So for 4 hours, you get into fight after fight while Zaz and Vanille make their own escape and reunite with everyone else. But remember, this isn't just a rescue mission.
We're gonna take down the Sanctum and give Cocoon back to the people. The fal'Cie have called the shots for long enough.
And that means confronting the head of the Sanctum, Primarch Galanth Daisley. They fight their way to the main chamber.
Your Eminence, please escape. I'll cover your retreat.
Humans have no business here.
What? Your Eminence!
Magic?
If they only knew a l'Cie was the one filling their glasses!
I am more than that! I am Fal'Cie. My name is Bartandalus, voice of the Sanctum and Lord Sovereign of the Cocoon Fal'Cie.
Holy shit, the head of the Sanctum is actually a Fal'Cie. And this is the first one that actually talks. I never would have known they could after all the Fal'Cie we saw along the way. But yes, Bartandalus challenges our heroes to a fight, gets his ass kicked, and then reveals that everything was all according to his design.
Allow me to help you see the truth of things. Ragnarok, one among you will become that monstrosity. Defeat Orphan and destroy Cocoon.
Their focus this entire time was to destroy Orphan, the source of power for Eden and the one thing that's sustaining all life on Cocoon. And Sarah's focus was to bring everyone together so that they could all be branded l'Cie. I guess Bartandalus has been aware of everyone this entire time, spying on them with robot owls and shit. Bartman wants Cocoon destroyed, and he's been organizing everything to make this happen. In fact, he doesn't want to kill our heroes, he instead supplies them with a special airship to escape the Palamecia's self-destruct sequence. The ship then goes on autopilot, flies to Eden, and disappears into a building. The party find themselves in an underground structure.
Why would a Cocoon Fal'Cie want to destroy Cocoon?
They immediately get their answer when they continue on through the facility, because they end up finding their good buddy Sid, who it turns out wasn't actually their buddy.
I put you on the path. That was my focus.
You're a l'Cie?
The Fal'Cie have watched over you, guiding your every step.
A Cocoon Fal'Cie? Why?
Why? To restore the Maker.
Isn't it great that Sid's saying this and not Bartandalus? But yes, the Cocoon Fal'Cie are trying to destroy Cocoon because they believe it will call down God. Basically, they believe humanity is bad because rather than live in peace, they kept warring amongst each other. I guess they're mad they even had to make Cocoon in the first place. Although nobody seems to be fighting anymore, so I'm not really sure what the big deal is. Unless the game is implying that Cocoon and Pulse are still at war, in which case, wow, you did a terrible job showing that. The point is, they want the world reset, and they believe that if everyone dies all at once, the spirits will cause such a massive opening of the heavens that God will finally return and fix the world. And I guess the only reason they seem to believe this are because of some prophecies that have been thrown out there, particularly by a seeress named Yule. This won't be relevant today, but stay tuned. We'll get to that when we get to that.
Why do they need us? Couldn't the Fal'Cie end Cocoon with just a thought?
Their existence is bound to the creation and maintenance of this floating shell. It is their very nature that holds them in check.
Cocoon Fal'Cie can't destroy Cocoon?
I gotta call bullshit on that one. They can't destroy Cocoon, so when they purposefully manipulate people into getting branded by Pulse l'Cie, that doesn't count. When they give people a focus to guide the l'Cie into destroying Cocoon, that doesn't count. Supplying them with an airship to not only avoid death, but also fly to Cocoon, doesn't count. And when they summon fucking monsters and let them loose into major cities, which causes a lot of death by the way, also doesn't count as destroying Cocoon. Yeah, makes sense. Great self-preservation. But don't worry guys, Sid's had a change of heart. He isn't going to help them destroy Cocoon anymore.
I too will challenge my fate. If I can defeat you here, the Fal'Cie plan will fail.
We of course kick the guy's ass, but you know, he raises an interesting point.
If we can stop this by doing nothing, we'll do nothing.
The end. Of course, the problem with that is that they'll turn into rock zombies if they don't fulfill their focus and kill Orphan. But that's not what a hero would do.
Maybe I will end up as Seath. But until that happens, I'm gonna make Sarah proud. Our focus doesn't matter. What matters to me is that we protect Cocoon. Whatever it takes.
I'll help you do it.
The world's full of lies. There's no way of knowing what's right. All we can do is believe in ourselves.
Let's do it. I'm with you. Bad choices and all.
And so the party stays determined to fight their fate. They aren't gunning for Orphan to save themselves. They're gunning for Bartandalus so that they can save the world. And it's at this point that the plot slows down and we enter everyone's favorite part of the game, Gran Pulse. This is where the game finally opens up and quote-unquote gets good. Well, let's talk about that. So as soon as everyone reunites with Zaz and Vanille on the Palamecia, you can finally choose your party members. Thanks, it only took 20 fucking hours. And then when you escape and end up in the Ark where Sid is, Fang and Vanille recognize that it feels like the kind of weapon facilities they had back home.
They used to say the Arks had a more practical purpose, to force l'Cie to master their shiny new powers.
I get it. Daisley's goal is to forge us into stronger weapons. Right.
Think of it as training for the fight ahead.
And they aren't kidding, because the game gets incredibly grindy from this point onwards. Inexplicably, after this cutscene we unlock another feature. Every single character can now use any paradigm that they want. Now Lightning can be a Saboteur or a Sentinel. Now Vanille can become a Commando. So yes, the tutorial has finally ended. I sure can't wait to utilize all of these extra paradigm classes! But once again, Final Fantasy XIII can't do anything right, so no, you actually won't. Because here's the thing, by the time I've reached the Ark, each of the skills I've been unlocking up to this point have cost about 740 Crystagen points, which seems fair considering most fights in the Ark give you about 500 points per battle. This is fine. So let's branch out and start putting points into making Lightning a Saboteur. Okay, 3,000? 3,000? I gotta fight 6 long battles just to fill up one thing? What the fuck? And it's like this for all the new paradigms. The cost to expand your abilities is way too high compared to the path you're already going down. So it's pointless to open up the Crystarium, because I'm not going to be using any of this until way later in the game. Just why? Don't tell me I was underleveled. The game forces me to be a certain level. Why wouldn't you balance it so that the level 1 tier is the equivalent of what we're spending at this point in the game? I just don't get it! Why is this game so miserable to play? The only saving grace about all of this is that regardless who you're playing as, everyone gets points when you win a battle. So unlike Final Fantasy XII, I'm encouraged to experiment with my party because everyone is growing no matter what. So I gotta give credit where credit's due. Although, you do have to keep changing your paradigm setup every time you switch people out, so, But at the end of the Ark, our heroes find a Pulse airship as well as a transgate that takes them off of Cocoon and into the world of Gran Pulse. Finally, right? We keep talking about Pulse this whole entire game. I've been curious to see what it's like. And it starts off pretty strong because, oh my, this is a giant field. It's not a hallway. Holy crap, the monsters are huge! Oh my god, there are side quests to do. Has the game finally gotten good?
I think it's safe to say things won't be boring here.
Thanks for that softball, Lightning. One thing you would always hear from the Final Fantasy faithful is that the game gets a lot better 20 to 30 hours in. That it finally reaches the potential it always had. So it might suck at first, but you should totally stick with it. And I absolutely disagree. First off, this game should be fun from the get-go. Our time is precious, and making us sit through a day's worth of tedium should never be a thing. And secondly, no, it absolutely does not get better. It's not like the game miraculously changes how the battles function. I'm still just changing paradigms and hammering auto battle. I'm still going up against the same wolves and behemoths and flans that I have been the entire time. Yeah, it's great that Gran Pulse has one big open map now, with treasures to find and new pathways to discover. But it's only this area. When you continue with the plot, you're going back to the hallway. The mine shaft, the waterfall cave, the village of Urba. You start advancing and it returns to familiar territory. You're still going to be dealing with the same crappy crafting system and doing long grinding sessions because the Crystarium unlocks are so much higher. And it's an empty wasteland. No towns, no people to talk to. That was the one thing I was looking forward to, because I thought this place might help flesh out the story a little. The closest thing we get to human interaction is doing the XIII side quests. So as soon as you enter the field, you encounter a XIII who's been a rock zombie so long, they lost their will to live and turned to stone.
And they call out to l'Cie, over and over. Complete my focus.
Well, hey, we should help this one out. Listen, if we fail our focus, it could be us suffering like that.
Yes, no, it could be you. Good thing you're not wasting your time with fetch quests, huh? But seriously, I was down for this because, oh my god, optional content, an actual side quest to get away from the main campaign. And what this amounts to is doing a whole bunch of monster slaying, because every single XIII has the exact same focus. Why does the fal'Cie care about that? Even the data logs describe these focuses as incomprehensible. Whatever. Basically, they took the hunt system from Final Fantasy XII and dropped it into here. Accept the quest, go to the marker on the map, kill the monster, and boom. You get better items, and then more XIII quests open up. Rinse and repeat for over 60 side quests. That's a lot. And you know, it's harmless, but it's ultimately pretty boring until you get to the hard super bosses. You have to walk across the map constantly. You can only accept one quest at a time, and that ruins any kind of multitasking I could have done. So much backtracking just to slay one monster on the other side of the world. Some XIII unlock fast travel points, some XIII help you ride chocobos, which makes traversing around a lot easier, but it's just dull. None of these quests have an interesting story to tell. I don't need the items I collect because I can beat the main campaign without them. I got so bored that I didn't even finish. I can't comment on the super bosses because I've never wanted to play this game long enough to actually reach them. Because again, if the game hasn't been fun for the first 20 hours, why would the game feel better now? The only thing I liked about Gran Pulse more than the rest of the game was that it had some of the best music. Yeah, controversial hot take here, but I think this is the most forgettable soundtrack of all the main numbered games. I'm not going to say the compositions are bad, it's just that they focus more on ambiance than they do melodies. If you were to ask me, what does the Gabra Whitewood sound like? I don't know. The Hanging Edge, Palom Polum, Orphan's Cradle? Sorry, but I can't remember. There was one melody that got stuck in my head, but that's only because they kept using it over and over again. The composer is Masashi Hamauzu, and I loved his work on Final Fantasy X. And you still see shades of his greatness in this soundtrack. I just think ultimately, it has a few great tracks, and everything else is perfectly fine. In summation, sure, Gran Pulse is where the game opens up. It's also the penultimate area which leads to Eden, the final destination. If I have to wait just before the game is over for the game to get good, you've done a bad job. The finale doesn't exist in a vacuum. You can't pretend the first 20 hours are a clumsy mistake, then act like the rest of the game is somehow brilliant. If people get turned off 10 hours in, you can't blame them for deciding that it isn't fun to play. So that's it. That's the gameplay. It sucks so much, and I can't recommend this game at all. So yeah, I'm done with the bitching. It's time to wrap this up. While down on Gran Pulse, the characters decide to journey to Fang and Vanille's home, the village of Erba, because maybe it'll have a solution to their l'Cie fate, a way to remove their brands, a way to save Cocoon. Unfortunately, they don't find anything. Instead, they find a ghost town as it's eroded away throughout the centuries, and all that remains are a bunch of Seath. And I can appreciate the tragic beauty about this. Everyone Fang and Vanille have ever known are long since dead. Not a single trace remains of the people they used to be. But at the same time, it makes this whole Gran Pulse section feel pretty pointless since they don't find anything here. It's just such a huge missed opportunity to not meet anybody from Pulse. All that fear, those purges, everything that's driven the plot, and we don't get to examine what Cocoon was so afraid of. Again, this game could have been so much better. And while in the village, Bartandalus makes his appearance. He once again challenges everyone to a fight to test how far their powers have grown. And afterwards, he gives them another airship.
Allow me to extend my invitation. Cocoon suffers. Release her from the pain.
Even if we were chasing shadows, our minds were made up. Maybe we'd fall short. Maybe we'd never even come close. But someone, someday, would know we'd tried.
And so the final battle begins. Our heroes fly back to Cocoon, arriving in the Sanctum City of Eden, and then they inexplicably decide to jump out of the ship and interrupt a racing competition that's going on. Seriously, they just dive out onto the track and cause all of the racers to freak out.
And the hero saves the day! Incredible!
Probably should have covered that.
No shit.
Now!
You dead!
You first!
This scene is fucking awesome. Yeah, we're almost at the end, and I haven't really talked about the visuals yet, but god damn, this game looks amazing. If Final Fantasy XII was the boring one because it focused so much on people standing around talking politics, then I gotta say that 13 is a stark contrast. The game is filled with awesome action scenes and the characters are always doing really cool stuff. Even in combat, the maneuvers they're performing when tearing enemies to shreds is a whole lot of fun. The character models are exquisitely detailed, and even 10 years later, this game still holds up. I actually think this game looks better than Final Fantasy XV even. Some of the monster designs are wicked as hell, like the Sanctum's Behemoth monster. You get the Robo-Bombs who look like D&D dice, the Seath who are visually distinct. It's fantastic stuff, what can I say? This is easily one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Don't let it be said that I didn't compliment aspects about this game, okay? It's very purty. But yeah, Eden basically goes to hell. When the party shows up, everyone flees in terror. Cid's cavalry finds out that he worked with Bartandalus, so they go to war with the Sanctum. And then just to be a dick, our big bad opens up some transgates to release a whole bunch of Pulse monsters into the city. It's absolute pandemonium. And I don't mean the palace from hell. Suddenly, crystals start to materialize inside of the city.
What is this stuff?
I don't like this. Is Cocoon falling apart already?
The clamor of this conflict rouses the Maker.
Where?
I'm so evil.
Come, l'Cie. Fulfill your destiny.
We'll decide our own destiny.
Right. Over Bartandalus's dead body.
So our heroes chase after the Primarch and find themselves inside the heart of the Sanctum. The resting place of Eden's power. The resting place of Orphan.
Men fight men. Men battle beasts. Cocoon wars with Pulse. Will you not at least slay Orphan and make it quick, as an act of mercy?
Mercy? You mean murder. And Cocoon won't die. We're not here for that. We came for you.
Final boss time. Honestly, I used the same strategy with Bartandalus that I did every other enemy. Buff myself at the start of the fight, use Libra to identify weaknesses, and then just whip its ass until I need to turtle up and heal. At this point in the game, lightning can raise stagger meters like a freak of nature.
I'm no one's slave!
And it works out! Our heroes defeat Bartandalus, causing him to fall into the liquid metal goop behind his throne. But unfortunately, he was counting on that. For the liquid metal goop is actually Orphan, and by killing Bartandalus, his body gets possessed and merged with the soul of Cocoon.
Your name is Orphan. By our hand, shall know redemption.
Oh goody! Bartandalus is an even bigger god monster. Because of course he is. Also, I love Orphan's face. It animates like an old 80s CGI movie. He looks like the Master Control program from Tron. Well, if that thing's Orphan, then I guess we should turn around and leave it alone because, hey, what the hell are you doing? You idiots! If you kill him, you destroy Cocoon! I guess they don't believe him, so we get another boss fight. But afterwards, tragedy strikes. Oh shit! They're too late! The brands activate and everyone but Vanille and Fang transform into XIII.
After all we went through.
When I first played this, I was genuinely curious where this was going. Did I get a bad ending? Orphan then lifts Fang up into the sky and proceeds to shock the living shit out of her in order to provoke her transformation to Ragnarok.
Vanille, run.
I swore I wouldn't run away anymore. I'd rather fight and lose than give up without even trying.
But lo and behold, a goddamn miracle happens.
We're alive!
But you can't be.
It was like I had a glimpse of the future. Everyone was smiling and laughing.
As luck would have it, next thing I know, I feel somebody pushing me right along.
So yeah, I don't know if God was responsible or if it was the power of love and friendship, but somehow they reversed their fate. And that means they can achieve anything.
Maybe Cocoon is past saving, but it's our home, and we'll protect it or die trying. We live to make the impossible possible. That is our focus.
The final form of Orphan casts Doom on the lead character, and it seems to be completely impervious to attacks. But once you stagger the guy, he goes down like a bitch. Lightning and friends unleash their fury and destroy Orphan. However, Bartandalus was not lying, and as soon as Orphan is slain, Eden loses its power and Cocoon loses its support. The artificial world falls out of the sky, bombing like a meteor from hell towards Gran Pulse. Love and friendship is great, but I don't think that worked.
Fang! Vanille!
Wishes can come true, but not if you just wait for miracles. Miracles are things we make for ourselves.
And then, acting as one hell of a Deus Ex Machina, Fang and Vanille fuse together in order to become a multi-armed Ragnarok. The beast causes so much magma to spawn, it comes from both Cocoon and Gran Pulse itself. The whole planet seems to be ready for destruction, when instead it all reverses. The magma crystallizes. Instead of falling to its doom, Cocoon is held up by a giant crystal pillar. Our heroes, however, find themselves on the surface of Gran Pulse, themselves turned to crystal for fulfilling their focus. But it wears off instantly. Not only that, but the brands upon their skin completely disappear. They are free of the l'Cie curse. And oh, what's that in the distance?
Sarah!
Sarah and Dodge are back to normal. I don't know what the fuck they're doing here, but hey, all's well that ends well. I mean, I do have lots of questions. Like, is Cocoon alright? I mean, it was falling down pretty hard. You'd think that Palampolum and all of the cities would be absolutely fucked. And of course, what of Fang and Vanille? Our favorite lesbians are encased in crystal, lying dormant in the pillar. And that's the final shot of the game. Why didn't they return to normal? Wait, why did everyone's brands disappear at all? You know what? It was probably mentioned in a data log. I don't care. All that matters is that the story is over. That, ladies and gentlemen, was Final Fantasy XIII. That was rough. The number 13 has lots of superstitions. Considered unlucky, it has been connected to things like the death of Jesus and the Mayan Doomsday. It's why Friday the 13th is a thing. It's why some hotels go from the 12th floor to the 14th. It seems that the number's unlucky nature carried over to Final Fantasy. Judging it on its own, this is a really bad RPG. The pacing is terrible, the story refuses to give context, there's no variety in the locations you go to, collecting weapons doesn't feel special, you're not allowed to experiment or grow your characters in any unique ways, the characters are annoying, the music is average, and worst of all, the game plays itself. I hate automation in RPGs. When you dumb everything down to just mashing the X button in every single battle, you've lost sight of why these games are so fun and popular to begin with. Never mind Final Fantasy. This game is inferior to Dragon Quest XI. It's lesser than Persona 5. It's nothing compared to Octopath Traveler. Enchanted Arms is way more fun. I'd rather play Blue Dragon. Dragon Age wipes the floor with this title, and I could go on and on and on. The fact that this is a Final Fantasy game makes it all the more heartbreaking. This series used to be so freaking good.
Anger didn't drive us. We just had things worth fighting for.
And that's just it. I love this series. I wouldn't have spent all this time making these videos if I didn't. But this game hurt me, man. Afterwards, I couldn't really get excited about the franchise anymore. And I wasn't the only one. You type in worst Final Fantasy onto YouTube, and you're gonna find that this game comes up a lot. You'll also find lots of defense videos that all ask the same question: was it really that bad? And yes it was. Final Fantasy XIII is easily one of the most disappointing games I have ever played. So that was 13, ladies and gentlemen. It's weird seeing the video so soon after 12s, huh? Well, I'd like to crank 2 more of these videos out before 2020 ends, and each of them are a continuation of this one. Hey, for a long time, we had to wait for the next single-player Final Fantasy game, and Square Enix wanted to keep reusing their assets. So here we are. Next time, I look at Final Fantasy XIII-2.